Hello and welcome to Across the Pond WNBA. Myself and Michelle are back, and we're getting into the run up to the start of the new season. We're recording this Friday. Season starts on, well, it's technically the day after my birthday, but I'm just gonna go with it's my birthday. So I don't care. Now we're in this run up, and normally in a run up to a season start, and we're seeing lots of players being released, which we have done. And, it's it's a bit I would always say that, like, last year, there was a bit more media buzz because there was the game in Toronto,
Mhm.
and so there was a bit of buzz about this. I have to say the Edmonton game, it did well locally, but I don't think it did well kind of nationally, unlike the Toronto game the year before.
Mhm.
But this year, obviously, we have, and we've mentioned it before, and we'll probably mention it all season, the Caitlin Clark effect. And one coach, Michelle, from the Minnesota Lynx, Cheryl, she she thinks that the coverage of Caitlin has been excessive. There's been an excessive focus on Caitlin and not so much on the rest of the teams, maybe individual players. Like, usually around this time of the year, you're talking about your Asia Wilsons, your
Mhm.
Sabrina Ionescu's, you're talking about those matchups for the upcoming season. Whereas on TV just now, it's Caitlin Clark.
It is. It's the Caitlin Clark show. Um, and as I told you, it took me a minute to kind of get the craze and to get on board and understand. I think the story and the narrative around the power that she has, the influence that she has in terms of what she has done for women's basketball. Don Staley put it best. She's changed the game. She's brought so many new fans to the game that it has given her a voice and a platform. Even though she had two Final Fours that she did not win, it's just the way she plays, how she plays, and then also what she does off the court in terms of the selflessness of the charter flights, which we'll talk about a little later. She didn't have to step up and do that, but she did that, and it took care of all the players in the league. I think when Cheryl Reeves is thinking from a coaching standpoint, so she has a point. So I'm not negating her points are very valid. I think when you think about the business and the long-term effects of the WNBA and how do we continue to make this a viable league and keep these fans around that you have, you got to think long term. And in terms of longevity, Caitlin Clark provides that right now. She is a buzzword. She is trending globally, not nationally, globally. Regardless of what team you play for, whether you're a fan, everyone's talking about her right now. So the league is going to continue to leverage that. And they have done an excellent job, in my opinion, of making sure that the league stays around for a long time to come. And I think as time goes on, you're still going to hear about your other players. And now you're going to have those rivalries that come out of this. So Cheryl has a point, but I think we have to focus right now on what do we do to make sure the league continues to thrive and that we continue to expand so we keep these players and this talent at home in the US.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing that's kind of been brought into focus, is that the media have a little bit of a double standard
Mhm.
going on when it comes to Caitlin, because
Mhm.
Caitlin has been, obviously, all her games have been televised so far, and
Yes.
one of the big things to come out of that is that, yeah, she moans at refs, she uses language that is maybe not so PG during games,
Mhm.
and and the on court stuff
Yeah.
is like any other player. However,
Exactly.
the media are picking it up. Now, I'm sorry, right? But I see Chris Paul, Luka Doncic, LeBron, like, I see all these guys doing it game in, game out. I mean, Chris Paul for me is probably one of the most annoying ones because he's always wrong. Like, at least if he was right half the time, it wouldn't matter so much. But he's always wrong. And with with Caitlin, like, Caitlin took a bit of a bump, and, like, straight away, she gives this, like, side eye look to the referee, like, "Why are you not calling that?" And then you can't lip read. I'm not that good at it, but, like, she's going off at the ref. What player isn't? But the media hone in on that. Oh, Caitlin, not showing really good professional behaviors and all this sort of stuff. I'm sorry. Again, Chris Paul, LeBron James, Luka Doncic. Like, I remember there's a clip that they show regularly on NBA TV, and it's Luka Doncic, and he's moaning at a referee, a female referee at that. He's moaning at her for not calling something, and he said, "Did you not see that?" And she just turns around and goes, "Did you not see it?" Like, so she kinda goes back at him, which is actually quite funny. But there does seem to be this double standard, and I kinda hope that we're not gonna see that because I think it's a negative double standard as well.
I think it's a funny one. It's a part of the game. We talk about LeBron crying all the time, which he is not crying. He is the king, number one. Number two, when you look at Cynthia Cooper, Cheryl Swoops, all these great players who played, even in on the WNBA side of things, I went at it with refs. I don't know how many pictures there are of me looking at a ref like this. Um, it's part of the game. I think what we are seeing right now with the Caitlin Clark, if y'all want to call it the Caitlin Clark effect, is it is shining a huge spotlight on the inequities across things. So because she's a female, she can't say, "Did you see that?" She can't be an athlete and she can't show up as her authentic true self because athleticism is about the passion that people put into the game and into their work. And if you feel like you got fouled, it's nothing. I think when you go on, the refs have to stop it. But if you do a quick little, yo, ref, and keep it moving, I don't see a problem with that. And I think it's across all sports. And honestly, I love the debate around it because continue to shine the spotlights on all these things that need to change across women's sports in general. And that's all she's doing is, like I said, her voice is so powerful right now. She's shining a light on things that are going to change. And that day is finally here.
Yeah, which brings us nicely on to chartered flights, something that you and I have discussed probably since we first started this 4 years ago. There is this issue with travel, uh, and we've seen it with uh, in Phoenix. Well, it was in Dallas, really, but around the Phoenix Mercury, where the team were mobbed by what can only be described to be as a jackass, who's just trying to get his 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
And so there's like that security thing as well. So it's not all about comfy chairs and extra legroom and stuff. There's real security concerns as well because as the profile of these players goes up, more people will want to reach out and touch them and be like, "Oh, please sign this." And when you're going through a busy airport, uh, and like it's not a chartered flight and it's just like a normal kind of flight, like that's you're just trying to get to your flight as a player and an athlete to sit
Mhm.
down and like you've got like a 4 hour flight and that is your full 4 hours of relaxation before you touch down and then kind of have to go through the same thing to get out of an airport. Whereas with the chartered flights, one, you've got much better security because you don't have so many people kind of moving around. And players now, because obviously we've seen it with New York, they got fined because they were using chartered flights without telling anyone. Um, but you now have all teams will have chartered flights, so it makes it fair for everyone right across the board.
I think it's good. I think they said 12 of the 13 teams will have chartered flights. I'm still trying to figure out who's that one team that isn't.
Yeah,
That was interesting. Two things you said. Um, like now as players get that notoriety and this, that's not true. I promise you. We had chartered flights in college. I
well,
came to the league and we have Cynthia, Tina, Jeanette Arcane, Cheryl Swoops, all on one team. I've seen those fans mob. I've seen all of those things. And most of the time, I will be honest, 99% of the time, there are no problems. But sometimes there are issues that come up where stalkers are real. The only difference now is social media highlights all of this. But people have been talking about this since the inception of the league. and saying, yo, this needs to be addressed, this needs to be done. Like I said, now when you have millions of new fans coming into the flock who have loud voices and who know how to leverage social media, whereas when the league first started, if you remember, it was an older league with older people who weren't tech savvy. So that day, it's just changed. The only difference is you can't ignore it anymore. Now you have people who are posting this stuff out, putting it in front of the world for the world to see. And there have been many incidents with players, not just in airports, but everywhere. So I think the charter flights, one, it does a couple of things. You know that your loved ones are safe while they're traveling. You don't have to worry about those people that want their 15 minutes of fame. I know we know Charles Barkley with the incident of throwing someone through the bar window. Things like that happen because you can't control the environment. And sometimes, like when the guy was following Brittany through the airport trying to get his 15 minutes of fame,
Yeah.
he didn't care if she was hurt, if it hurt her family or anything. He just wanted what he wanted. And I think that it allows the league to kind of keep all of that stuff under wraps and keep their players safe, which we have to do. And I think that's very important, especially when you're looking at a player like a Brittany Griner and everything that was going on with her, and now you see it happening again, and Caitlyn is going through the same thing. I just think it's the right time, person. Everything is in play. It's the perfect storm for the WNBA right now, to be completely honest, because these stories and these incidents, they're not new. It's just it's the first time that everyone is starting to hear all of this unraveled publicly.
Yeah. Now, one last thing on Caitlin, and I didn't kind of plan to talk about this, but it's just because it's kind of come up in my brain, so apologies. There was a reporter
Mhm,
at Caitlin's first kind of media gig
mhm.
at in Indiana and or in Indianapolis, and it was awkward to watch. I won't lie, even for me, I was like, "Oh, please, please crawl under a rock somewhere and hide because this is not going well." But he seemed to not think that this was an issue, and I think it's the Indianapolis Star he works for, and the Indianapolis Star themselves
Yeah,
have taken him off coverage of
yeah,
the WNBA, and he won't be doing that. And like, this is the thing with media, especially when it's a brand new rookie. Never mind Caitlin Clark, but like it's a brand new rookie into the league. Like, I don't say that we should always be careful and walk on eggshells around people, but
yeah,
at the same time, like when you're interviewing a rookie just come into the league and is young, and I mean Caitlin I think actually handled it very well,
yeah.
in all fairness, but like that reporters just need to be smarter, don't they? I mean, you're in a privileged position that you're in the room, and then you go and do something stupid like that.
I think it's a double-edged sword because we want our reporters to go in and get the story. And sometimes getting the story means they may have to cross lines. And sometimes their job is to try to get you emotionally rattled. It is to try to, portray a certain image or try to create a narrative that fits whatever they feel. Because at the end of the day, salacious articles and things like that sell. And like you said, Caitlin has media training. She handled it very well and it ended up backfiring on him. But hopefully, it's a lesson to reporters that it's a new day and a new age. All of that. It happened with Don Staley. Remember, with the reporter at
Mm,
the championship game. Same thing
yeah,
happened. But I think it's just coming. There's a time and a place right now with the light that's on women's basketball that you can no longer say and move without repercussions, and that's where we are. And unfortunately, he got moved and he had to learn a tough lesson. But at the same time, he knew it was wrong when he did it. So you got to
yeah,
pay. You got to pay for it.
yeah, I think he was trying to dig himself out of a very, very deep hole.
Big hole.
That didn't work quite as well. I mean, like when I go to events, like I've been to the NFL in
Mhm.
London, and obviously post game press conferences and stuff, and you sit in these press conferences, and you do feel for me anyway very privileged because you're talking to the head coach, you're talking to the star players, and some of the questions can be kind of absolute doozies, and I sat in front of it was British Basketball League Trophy final last March, and there was me and one other reporter, and he was from the BBC,
Mhm.
and he sat and asked a question for about 3 minutes, and by the time he'd finished it, the guy that he was asking it to,
Forgot.
he was like, "Sorry, what was the question?" So you're kinda like so I think there is this thing, but all he was trying to do was the entire time he was talking, he'd a the question, I can't even remember what it was, but he asked the question, but what he was doing is he was qualifying the question
Mhm.
over and over again. It was
Mhm.
almost as if, like, I definitely wanna make sure that I'm asking this question in the right way, and I definitely want you to make sure that you're not taking offense, you're not this or that,
Yeah.
and you could tell, like, because when I listened back, because I had recorded it, when I listened back, I was like, I can actually see what he's doing there. He's
Yeah.
he's he's overthought it so
Yeah.
much now, though, that it's turned into this like 3-minute question, which should have been 30 seconds. And so I think you're right with the double-edged sword. I think it can be, yes, they're there to get a story, but at the same time, I think, especially media, they have a responsibility now. And, and unfortunately, we are coming up to an election year in both countries, here in the UK and in the US. And we are going to hear all this kind of fake news and all this kind of malarkey that's going to go on. I have no doubt. It's not started yet, but I'm sure it will. And I think that sports media, especially, like, they have to get it right because people watch sports to get away from all of that stuff, and that's their outlet, is to go watch sports and listen to reporters and listen to engaging stories. And hopefully this is a learning curve for everyone.
Yeah. I think so, because it still happens in men's sports too, so I'm not saying it only happens. I think we're getting to a place where social media and these videos and these recordings are forcing people to pay attention to how they show up because it could ruin you.
Yeah. I mean, that's ruined his year. I mean,
Yeah.
effectively, he was probably like he probably went home to his wife and was like, "Oh,
Mm.
I'm going to be covering Caitlin Clark this year. How lucky am I?"
Yes.
And then he went home to his wife and said, "Where are you going? Why have you packed your bags?" Um, so it's kind of like that part. So yeah,
The YOLO, say whatever you want. It's unfortunate. I mean, well, not unfortunate. I think it is fortunate. I think it's very fortunate that we're putting a light on this stuff because I think sometimes we don't realize that our words have so much power and we freely say things that we probably should not be saying.
yeah,
And now it is holding us accountable to those things. And although he won't be covering that anymore and is going to change maybe his career path a little bit, I hope he grows from it and he learns from it. And I hope he gets another chance as well because I go, you never want to hold someone down for a mistake because we all should be able to learn from it and move and grow on and grow. At the same time, I think we have to continue to hold people accountable for these things.
oh, definitely. And yeah, you're right. Like, people make mistakes. I mean, we're
Yeah.
human beings. We're not perfect, and we will say and do stuff on occasion that is right at left
Yeah.
field. So, and it does happen. I mean, we've seen it in baseball the last couple of
Yeah.
years. We've seen two commentators get fired because they've used an inappropriate word or a
Yeah.
slur or something, and it's just slipped out. So it does happen. People make mistakes. So I don't
Yeah.
want to assassinate the guy, but
That part.
yeah, let's do better. Um,
You
and
said
and
it best.
and doing better. Um, we're always on this show talking about expansion, and we know that
Mm,
next
mm,
year,
mm.
2025, we will have a team in San Francisco, which I am very excited about. I'm very, very excited about. We already have plans to have a San Francisco podcast, I will tell you. We already have someone in San Francisco who said they'll go to games and cover them for us. That is how
Sweet.
excited we are. Now, today, just a few hours ago, it was announced quietly, not officially, that on May 23rd, there will be an official announcement that the newest WNBA franchise will land in Toronto, Canada. Like, we thought it was going to be last year, and then they sprung San Francisco on us like out of nowhere. I don't think anyone's seen that coming unless you worked in the league office.
Smart move.
And then this year, you have the Canada game in Edmonton.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks later, you announce there will be officially a new franchise starting in May 2026 in Toronto, Canada.
Congrats to Toronto. I think it's awesome. I love how they were testing it because now you're testing, how it looks to have that team outside of the US, expanding the game for women's basketball. So I think, like you said, that game they had in Toronto a couple of years ago, the turnout was amazing. The game was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then Edmonton, I think that was kind of overshadowed just by everything that's going on with the WNBA and Caitlin Clark, to be
Yeah.
honest. But I think it still put that on the map, and it kind of wrapped things up in terms of which team should get this next WNBA expansion. So nothing but love and congrats to Toronto.
Definitely. And now it's the Tenenbaum is a minority owner and chairman of sports. They own the Maple Leafs, the Raptors, and a bunch of other stuff as well around Toronto. So again, it looks as though the WNBA have went after people who have a track record. Like when we look at San Francisco, they've went after the owners of the Warriors, who have run a very successful franchise on and off the court. And it looks as though that they're pretty much, that seems to be what they are going towards. They're not just going to give a franchise to any Tom, Dick, or Harry. They are actually going to give a franchise to someone who has history in sports and in professional sports.
You have to. I think when we first saw the league start, we know that a lot of the teams were basically the sister teams to NBA teams, and there were incentives behind that. And although incentives will make people do things, it doesn't mean they want to do them. I think now the league is looking for people who want to do it, who understand that business, who understand the women's game and sports across the board, and know how to market and get visibility behind things. And you can see that turning into some very successful franchises across the board. I think Golden State right now is probably the epitome of that. I think Mark Davis is also trying to do some things around that. We know Vegas has wanted an NBA team for years. So I think the league and the way they are expanding, and this is why it's taking so long, because some people are like, hurry up already. But I think they're being very strategic in terms of how they do it to make sure that these teams do last and are viable.
And that's important. I mean, I'm a Utah guy, and we had the Utah Stars, who then ended up in San Antonio, who then ended up in Vegas. Or you look at some of the teams that don't exist anymore. I mean, we mentioned the Houston Comets earlier on as well. So I think it's a good thing. Am I keen on it? Like one added team a year? Like, I know we don't want them to rush it, and we want them to do it properly because again, we want it to be sustainable. But at the same time, like you look at that draft and you look at the players that have just been released, and you're like, there's a lot of talent left on the shop floor. Like a lot. I mean, there is every year. But and then next year we have another draft, and we potentially have 4 or 5 players that on some teams, some WNBA teams would start.
Yeah.
Like because they're going to be that good. I mean, they're that good now. But I'm happy for Toronto because I think the Raptors have been run exceptionally well, and they have a WNBA, they have an NBA championship to their name. They maybe had to buy it, bringing in Kawhi Leonard, but like they got one. But like, and with Golden State and with these other cities that want teams, what's funny about Vegas is Vegas has a WNBA team first.
Yes.
And they'll be the first city that will have an NBA team second, which will, I think that, I mean, Mark Davis loves to turn things on its head, but like I find that quite amusing that, like, you have a WNBA team that is exceptionally successful on and off the court, great fan base, dedicated fan base that turn up to games, sell out I think all their season tickets are sold out for this
Yep.
season. So, you have a dedicated fan base. So the NBA then have to look at that and be like, "Well, hang on.
What are you
You
doing?
already have an NHL team. You
Mhm.
have a Major League Baseball team coming, which I'm
Yes.
still not happy about. But you have a WNBA team who are is just as popular as the NFL team or the NHL
Mhm.
team. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't an NBA team work in Vegas?
But that was the point. That was the reason he did all of that. And I've seen people do this. The crazy part is teams were doing this overseas.
Mhm.
And you saw them doing this with like the sponsorship thing that came to the WNBA that came from overseas. I think people are I think we're past it has to come from an American, it has to come from a certain source. It's whoever is doing it and is working, we're gonna look to replicate that system. Mark Davis is taking something where, okay, I'm gonna make everyone jealous and make this team just as popular as any of the men's teams, where you're going down the Las Vegas Strip on fire trucks back to back, just acting a fool. You're walking into the NFL stadium and you have 250,000 people losing their minds over women, a women's sports team. He knew what he wanted from the get-go. I think he played a game of chess in terms of how he would get it and how he would leverage marketing, social media, and all these different things to get to where he wanted to be. That's why I said but he said it. He also said this when we first went to see him in person, and it was, "I wanna show these other teams how to make sure that the women's game does have sustainability long term." And he's put the money into it as well. He didn't
Yeah.
just live off of the incentives. He said, "I'm gonna invest in this and show you how to get a return on that investment."
Yeah. And I think Caitlin Clark actually thanked Mark Davis and there was another owner, and I apologize, I can't remember which one it was, but I did see an article where Caitlin Clark was like, "Well, if owners like Mark Davis and the other
Mhm.
person weren't pushing for this,
Yes.
then it wouldn't happen. It takes everyone to kind of push in the same direction to make these things happen, like chartered flights. And we're lucky we see that. We're now lucky that
Yeah.
we see two expansion teams that we know about. We're gonna have one next year and one at least the year after. Um,
Houston!
and then maybe Houston, and then another one out east, hopefully.
I'm biased.
And then
I'm
we see where we go from there.
yeah.
We see where things land.
So, where are your teams? What would your 2 teams be?
So I'm still pulling for Oakland, um, because I love Oakland, and I think out east, I genuinely think it's between Philly and Boston. The only thing is there'd be quite a lot of teams around that kind of same area
Mhm.
because you'd have Connecticut in there as well, and obviously New York a bit further down. But yeah, but Boston is a basketball town for sure, as is Philly. So, but why not try somewhere Pittsburgh? Like it's not been tried and tested, but why not put some games there like they've done with Canada?
Oh,
Put some games there, see who turns up. And
that's fair.
then like you've got Philadelphia, but then you've got Pittsburgh.
Philly.
And because those two cities like to fight out over who's got which teams and stuff. And
Yeah.
as you start rivalries and all that kind of stuff.
I think those are 2 great. I love it. I like the rundown. I don't see Oakland, though. I don't. Just
I
from
know
an
I don't see it
economic
now.
standpoint. Oakland's losing all of their teams to Vegas.
Yeah,
I just
yeah, that part. I'm still
I
not happy. My Oakland A's are gone.
I don't yeah, I agree. I love Oakland, think it's great. I don't know if they've shown they know how to be sustainable yet. It's something missing. I don't know what it is, but the recipe's off in Oakland.
Yeah. I think with the people that have just started a new professional baseball team, the Oakland Ballers,
Mhm.
I think I mean they're investing something like 2 million into renovating a smaller baseball park, and
Mm.
it's gonna house like 15,000 fans and all this kind of stuff.
Oh,
So
wow.
I think it'll be nice to see how that pans out because obviously baseball's a huge thing in Oakland. And basketball was as well until obviously they took the Warriors and put them in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, I think we maybe don't see one in Oakland in the next 2, 3 years,
Yes.
but if the Oakland Ballers can do well and be sustainable themselves,
Yeah.
then I think that, yeah, we could potentially see a team eventually in Oakland. But yeah, I think you're right. I think after one landed in San Francisco, and then after obviously the Raiders left, the A's left, yeah, it's
They've been hit hard, and I honestly, I really do feel for the fans there because I feel like they just keep getting their team snatched away.
well, just saying, Oakland Ballers have their first home games in June,
Okay.
and I think it's June 4th, which I think is on purpose, and June 4th in Ramadi Park, and I'm looking forward to seeing more fans in that stadium than there is in the Coliseum. So that part, John Fisher, yeah. Um, can't tell. I don't like John Fisher. Right. If you want to talk about a good
You
owner and
know,
a bad
funny.
owner, a good owner. Oh, you've got Mark Davis. Bad owner. Oh, you've got John Fisher. That's just how it is. A guy that's willing to do stuff and put money behind it, and a guy that's just sits in a chair and just says, "No, I'm not giving you any more money." Yeah, but the Yankees are spending like 200 million a year. Yeah, well, you can spend 10. So, sorry, I'm like having Moneyball issues.
This is funny. I like it.
It just irks me so much.
Like we
Um,
can see.
I know anyone listening to the podcast, you'd probably need to go over and check YouTube and watch my actual reactions as I you're probably getting a bit red in the face now. Talk about the Aces. The Las Vegas Aces not known for keeping rookies around.
Hey. Mm,
However, the
yeah,
the feedback that we have had for Kate Martin out of Iowa, by the way, just in case no one knew,
yeah,
the feedback that we have had from the likes of Kelsey Plum and other teammates has been phenomenal. Like
yeah,
they have really come out and sung her praises. Kate Martin makes the team for this year as well.
absolutely. Kate Martin, absolutely. They kept a rookie. I mean, that's not normal.
No,
But I
not for
also
this
think
team.
that part. But I will say once again, this is a smart business move. 100%. I think she's an excellent player. She's playing. I mean, look who was her teammate.
Yep.
I think when you look at the teammate, the effect going even further to different teams, it's a great move because you know she's a smart player. She's already proven herself. She's been to 2 Final Fours as well. For for Mark Davis and the Aces, from the team standpoint, you're getting a player that's going to fit right in and understand your systems. Number one, and at 6 feet, you got some height coming at that guard spot. So they need that, especially knowing Candace now is gone. The second piece of that is when you look at the business in the front office, and I'm thinking from, all right, how do we leverage the Caitlin Clark effect? Home run. Come on, home run. Now you're getting all of those fans that you're pulling into a proven system. Mark Davis just that client that client acquisition, he's smoking it right now. This guy needs to do a tutorial because he's showing people how to run successful businesses. He's doing an amazing job. I think she's a great addition to that team
Mhm.
from every angle. She's gonna fit right in.
I think she's a bit like a silent assassin because when she's at Iowa, no one's paying attention to her because they're all eyes are on Caitlin. Because I think there was a bit of surprise because she went to the draft as a guest
Mhm.
with Caitlin. Like that's why she was there, and then she gets drafted, and everyone's like, "Oh, hang on, who's Kate Martin? Let's Google that," because everyone, when you talked about Iowa basketball, everyone was talking about Caitlin, which was a little bit a shame for the rest of that team. But
Yes.
then you see, obviously, someone was watching because Kate Martin then gets drafted
Tell me that
and
wasn't
is
smart. That is genius. That is absolutely genius.
looking forward to that first matchup.
It's yeah, I am too, but think about what you just said. In Iowa, no one was watching her, and she just was that silent assassin. What is she gonna be for Vegas? Because they
Mhm.
have their pieces in place. They're coming off of a win. They just need someone to step in and hit. when teams are trying to double or triple or doing all these junk defenses. She's gonna fit in very well with that team.
I
And I
think
I
so
think
too.
that has I would love to see her reaction just because can you imagine being a guest and being drafted?
I know that's what was mental. I was like, she was there as a guest of a player that was going to be drafted number one. I mean, everyone knew that, and then she gets drafted herself. I mean, quite a nice surprise for her, I would imagine as well.
Beautiful.
I'm sure she was. I'm sure she was over the moon when that happened. Um, Not so good news. So I'm in the UK and I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated. And when I go online, I'm seeing a bit of frustration as well because there's a lot of games in this preseason that are not being
I
televised.
knew that's where you were going.
Like, well, the thing is, like, they're showing every Caitlin Clark game, obviously,
Why
but
not?
like we've got some kind of, and I think special games coming up in
Mm,
terms of like Vegas taking on Puerto Rico. Like I see that as quite a special game because it's not often a WMA team will take on a nation. It's
hmm,
a smaller nation, but a nation nonetheless. And like I don't know, like people want to see their team, and like if you don't live in the city, like say if you live 2 hours away from Chicago, like th- that's a long drive to watch a preseason game. Whereas if at least if you can watch it on TV,
hmm,
like but, like, some of these games not being televised while you're having Caitlin Clark, while you're having returning champion Aces, while you're
yeah,
having New York looking to kind of go at the Aces again, and you're looking at other teams like Seattle who have rebuilt, and you're not necessarily getting to see them all in preseason to what fans can I mean, I take preseason games with a pinch of salt in terms of
yeah,
results. But preseason games can be fun as well. Like, yes, their coaches are trying things out and everything else, but these preseason games can be fun and great for fans as well, both
absolutely.
in the arena and watching at home.
Absolutely, and I think that's the point of them. It is to test and to see different things from the coach's standpoint, to take the game to places that you haven't seen and test markets. I love that we're talking about this because as you look at the Caitlin Clark effect, the chartered flights, now we're looking at the league pass and a lot of fans signing up for that as well. Now we're talking about the games that aren't being televised. And I'm sorry, I'm always going to have my business hat on. That's just how I think. What happens at the end of this season? And has anyone thought about it? The CBA can be opted out of. That's why I said this right now is the perfect storm. You got expansions happening, women's basketball is trending, WNBA. You have all these college players with NIL money coming into the league, bringing visibility. With the CBA, it is the perfect time now to look at these deals, these TV and media deals. Why do you think they're dropping 50 million for these charter flights? Because all eyes are on them. Now you have all eyes that want to see the games and to be more involved and engaged. So I think one of the biggest things during the CBA in the off season will be around how do we leverage the media and marketing. The WNBA is in a beautiful position to make an amazing deal. And I think they will have people lined up for those deals as long as they continue to keep the momentum with the sport going throughout the season. So, bringing up the fact that this game isn't televised and Caitlin is playing and the Aces are playing is great because it continues that traction. And hopefully, the young lady who is streaming the game in Chicago, maybe she goes to the Puerto Rico game because that girl got power. She has power. I think that young lady Sedona Prince, who filmed and was talking about the things going on during the bubble in terms of the NBA versus the WNBA with amenities. She showcased that. And then you have Caitlin Clark, who comes with a platform and puts everybody on her shoulder and says, I have the fan base behind me. Let me put these things on the table so that we can see change. Same will happen with media because you see people following her everywhere she goes. So I think this is going to just I think the WNBA is about to go to new heights.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like we talk about every year, like games being televised, the interest is like it's phenomenal and it's going up every year. And like 20% viewership up and
Mhm.
19% the next year. And so there it is trending up every year. One thing that's gonna be different this year on opening night
Mhm.
is, yeah, ESPN are obviously owned by Disney, and this year we're gonna have opening night on Disney Plus. Now, I preface this I preface this with Disney Plus in the US, not Disney Plus anywhere else. Thanks so much for that yet
Listen, we
again.
gotta start somewhere, James. We gotta start somewhere because, I think Disney Plus now, then maybe we have those preseason games in Disney like they do with other Disney sports,
Mhm.
could be an option in the future, and then you go global.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know. I did. I mean, I don't know if this is confirmed or not. I have asked the league. I did ask the media team in the league office, like when they sent out because they send out media stuff to me, and they're like, "This is what we've got going. If you'd like to kind of promote it, kind of thing," which I'm happy to do. So
yeah,
yes, Disney Plus will be showing opening weekend in the US for definite. I have asked them if it will be in the UK as well. No one's got back to me as yet, but they're very busy because the new season starts like this week. So I understand. But if I do see it on Disney Plus, I'll be over the moon because I think like it's one thing to have League Pass offering, but in the UK, we're gonna have televised on normal television one game a week. And that's not enough. It's just not enough. So I really do hope that they do kind of bring in Disney Plus. League Pass is brilliant, and don't get me wrong,
yeah,
like yes, not seeing some preseason games is a little bit annoying, but at least like every other game of
yeah.
the season, I have access to. So there's that part. But yeah, I just kind of hope that Disney Plus and stuff we kind of can knock that out of the park as well because how many kids in the UK, even my kids,
Mhm.
how many kids in the UK have access to Disney Plus? You open up yourself to a massive audience, certainly in the UK, because I think last time I looked, Disney Plus had 7 million subscribers in the UK. That's potentially 7 million new viewers to the WNBA. And not even just in the UK, you look at Europe, you look at Africa, Australia, Asia. Like, if you put this on Disney Plus, you will open up the world to you because there is so many people in the world subscribed to Disney Plus and who would have access to these 2 games that they're gonna show.
I agree. I think we're getting there, and I think one of the people who is gonna be the pioneers is you. We're gonna fly you out to Disney. We're gonna give you all the jerseys for all the teams and the little plaques because you have been fighting from day one and you've been dead on about a lot of these things, expansions, all of this stuff. Keep talking about it because I know it sound we keep saying the Caitlin Clark effect. I think she's just the voice that people are listening to, but the topics and trends and things that are happening are the result of long discussions and things that you and like I said, Sedona Prince and other people are talking about for years. And now is a time for you guys to keep speaking up and promoting, leveraging your platform so that fans know like throw a survey below. How many of you guys are on Disney Plus? Do we need to expand it? What are other options and opportunities that we can leverage to get that to continue promoting the league in a way that draws new fans globally?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think everyone can play their part. And I think fan pressure, we've seen it before.
Oh yeah.
Leagues give in to fan pressure because leagues are like, okay, this is what the fans want. They're paying the tickets, like they're paying salaries and everything else. So, if this is what the majority of fans want, then we have to go down that route. Now, last year, we got to go to the White House. Jamie, very kindly, who lives in Washington, D.C., actually, who covers IndyCar for us,
Yes.
went to the White House to cover the Aces meeting Vice President Kamala Harris and kind of getting their pat on the back for winning the championship. Now, usually we see this during the season when the team are visiting Washington to play the Mystics. However, it already happened and no one told us until the Aces started posting stuff through their social media, and you're like, "Hang on, sorry, the Aces are in Washington, DC? What the heck?"
Yeah.
So I'm a little sad this year that we don't get to be there and see it in person, but I have to say, it is nice that the president was there this time. He was back from his holiday, um, but like it was nice to see him up and around.
Oh, you're on one today. You are hilarious. Oh,
I know I should probably take some Valium after this.
I love it. I think it's good for the podcast. You gotta be you. I'm glad they went. I'm glad. I kinda like that it was silent at the same time, because I even looked for it. You only see articles after the fact. There
Yeah.
was nothing before, but I think our boy was like, "I'm gonna go on vacation because y'all not gonna try me like you did last year."
Oh yeah. He was like, hang on, because he got back from vacation last year, and he was like, the Aces have been. Okay. So this year he was like, I'm getting them in early. I'm getting them in even before the season starts. Um, I'm having them in the White House, and I'm going to be there. Which I mean, it's nice, and it is a tradition that I don't think we maybe appreciate in the UK, but I appreciate it because like it's always nice to see your championship teams, whether it be college, whether it be pros, going to the White House and having their pat on the back from the president.
Right.
I think it's a nice thing. It's a tradition as well. Like I'm quite a tradition. I like tradition, so I quite like it. But um, last year we got to go. This year we're not gonna get to go to that this year. But you know we're gonna three-peat, so we'll just have to be there next year.
That part. That part.
But on that bombshell, we will get out of here. We will be back next week, and by this point next week, Michelle, we'll have actual games to talk about.
I know. 14th kicks off. Let's
14th,
go.
and it's gonna be mental, and
Oh yeah.
I think this year is gonna be hard to keep up.
It
I think
is.
there's
It is. I
there's
don't
so
even think
much
for
going on.
predictions. I think it's gonna be tough to make predictions and different things until we see how people are transitioning into the league. And I think veterans will help with that. Teams, like we said, their situations are different. Kate Martin is going into the perfect situation. Whereas others, it may be a little tougher to get on the court and to be able to show who you are and what you can do. But I know this: the league is going to be a ton of fun this summer. The topics are going to keep coming. I'm just excited to see what's the next twist in this story.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome season. We're looking forward to it. Across the Pond, New York Liberty will also be back throughout this season, as will Across the Pond Aces, covering those two teams. Hopefully, next year we can have a little expansion of our own, and we will start to cover other teams. I know San
Yep.
Francisco is one that we have on the docket. So um, keep with us on Across the Pond WNBA and through Across the Pond Sports Network, and we will see you all very soon.